episode 3, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Elaine Clardy, and then around me I have...
Anna Stingerganius.
Delaney Mobley.
Alexia McLean.
And Kirsten Parker.
So today we are looking at the historical hauntings of the Enfield poltergeist in London, England. So to kick that off, we have a little bit of background information. This was an actual haunting that multiple researchers came to do experimentation on. Some of it was actually duplicated, but then some of it was actually found out to be pranks or tricks from some of the daughters of the house that they actually confessed to. But at the same time, there were other unexplained happenings that several researchers came back through and said, no, this is legit. What do y'all think?
I think
there's possibilities for both.
Yeah. What about
They
you?
both seem very possible. I mean,
So, the research that I did on it, it said that what really kicked off all the investigations and everything was the iron furnace being ripped out of the wall.
Is there legitness in that? Or
There were claims that it did come out of the wall, especially with the mother and the daughters, but at the same time, if the mother and the daughters were also in on the pranks, then how much do we actually believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If somebody outside of the family didn't witness it.
Yeah. And I feel like if they're over there pranking each other and then they want all that attention, their statements are kind of illegitimate because there is no, like, true understanding of whether or not they're telling the truth.
Right.
So
But
I
then
feel
what
like-
again if it's what if it's only haunting them, like that particular thing only haunts them?
Mhm.
Like, I don't know, because some people only get haunted
Mhm.
by certain things, or
Yeah.
certain things only haunt them and not other people.
And I feel like some ghosts have attachments that they form to certain people because of their background or their job or where they live or how they live. So
Some of the hauntings, it depends on the person. They may have ESP, extrasensory perception. So it could be in the form of precognition, knowing something before it happens, telekinesis, telepathy. All these things can actively affect the energy around them. I know that a lot of the research that's been done has to do with like the people themselves. With the different documentation, the electronic voice phenomena, the recording on the little tape cassettes, there's been, there's been temperature differences within the house, the electromagnetic fields, like there's a lot that kind of goes into it, but what actual documentation do we have from Enfield?
yeah.
That's a very good point. So, like, now the house was built in 1736, hosted by the Perrin family from the 1970s to, like, the following decade, or decades, maybe even. And while they were there, they just had these hauntings. Do you know, like, of any, like, specific things that would happen?
I know that part of it was one of the daughters, like they heard a voice and they said it was a demonic voice, but then like even ventriloquists have come and tried to like make the same sound effects, and part of it they were saying it was completely fake because they were using their vocal cords in a certain way to give it a certain like
Raspiness.
pitch or raspiness, and then sometimes it would be covered like this, so their hands would be over their mouth, so you wouldn't fully see her actually make the claim or that utterance.
And in the movie, you can see that too, how they're really skeptical about whenever she's sitting down on the couch. She was like, oh, I can't do it with you looking at me.
Yeah.
Like, that there's no legitimateness to that because you don't know if they're actually making the sound with their mouth or if it's coming from them, just not from them.
Right.
So.
So, along with while they were living there, it was owned by the same family for 8 generations. Correct?
Correct.
If we're talking about the Enfield one, that's actually the second Conjuring movie, and that's in London.
Okay.
So we're right here.
Yes. So several kids, many of them died. Several of the kids drowned. One or two maybe were murdered. Others hung themselves. Do y'all think like any of the kids themselves had anything to do with like the hauntings or any of the paranormal activities that did happen there?
Well, I know that I've heard that people that do like hang themselves, like kids and stuff, like people that do kill themselves, have been known to haunt the places because they have this like connection to the place because something bad happened, and that's why they've killed themselves and stuff.
And just from off of experience in my house, I mean, we believe that there's a little girl that runs around our house. Like, she'll do some weird stuff, and I'm like, you can keep that over there.
Makes the presence known.
Yeah.
Nearly the same thing with mine, but what we don't know anything about him or her, it, whatever. But at night, like, he or she will just like slam doors shut or open and then close blinds up really quickly. Scares the crap out of my stepdad. He seems like the toughest dude ever, but he becomes a big old baby in that situation.
Yeah, I have an attic above my room, and I've heard things up there too sometimes, and it freaks me out.
I haven't heard anything in my attic, but
I have. It's weird, dude. It's weird. It only happens at night.
Mine's in my room too. The only thing I've ever like witnessed in my room is my blinds were open and then boom, they were pulled shut.
And do we know if there's any like evidence of that happening at the house or
At the infield
yes, ma'am.
house, there were different instances of objects getting moved, especially a chair getting moved in front of a police officer that was there when the mom initially tried to say, hey, something's going on, something funky, and I don't know what it is. And the police officer actually witnessed it, and he's like, I don't know what just happened.
Yeah. And I feel like just maybe them trying to gain all this attention from like saying, okay, yeah, this happened. Maybe it's them like enticing the spirits that are actually present in the house to go ahead and do more than what they normally do.
Yeah.
More or less speaking a true evil into the house.
Yeah.
Especially, oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Especially if there are things to upset the presence that is there. There is a TV show on Destination America called A Haunting, and it's ran for about 12 seasons. And I listen to it for background music as I'm like doing laundry, trying to wash dishes. But part of that is there's always a trigger event of something happening in that house for either the possession or demonic activity, something to take it up a notch and become more agitated. I know that Ouija boards are part of that, and it is very hard to control what is let loose.
Yeah. And I don't know if y'all have watched it, but the Paranormal Activity movie, that like whenever he's sitting in the living room and he's over here doing the thing and the thing catches fire and there's all this wind and stuff. I know that it's really not based off of a true story, but like it triggered something in that house to become even more active after only just opening doors or shaking the house. I mean, it's still pretty strong, but I mean, it still can trigger it to cause them darker entities to come out.
And sometimes it doesn't necessarily take a trigger event because there has already been something happening in the house that it doesn't necessarily need to escalate. It just keeps rolling. Ed and Lorraine Warren were very well-known demonologists or self-proclaimed demonologists. They investigated the Enfield haunting, the Amityville Horror, which also has a movie, The Conjuring, the Annabelle doll, all these different things. But at the same time, you've got to figure out what that nugget of truth is behind it. Because when they actually investigated the Enfield haunting, they were never asked to show up. They just kind of showed up on their own. It's like, well, who said you can come here? Like, go.
Yeah.
I believe that would be a good place to change topics. So why don't we talk about the Conjuring House? The Old Arnold Estate is what it's also known as. It's a 14-room farmhouse located in Harrisville, Rhode Island, and it was built in 1736. The Perrons lived there during the 1970s and the decade following that.
Okay.
While they stayed there, they were paranormally attacked by many things. One, I don't know if it's actually true, but the Bathsheba Sherman, she resented Carolyn Perrin, the mother of the family, because she's almost posed a threat to being the mistress of the house, so like the head lady of the house.
And now, Ms. Clardy, you know most of what is actually going on and what we're actually talking about. Can you, like, back her story up? Like, do you think, or do you know for a fact if it's true with whatever?
Like, I know that Ed and Lorraine Warren also investigated this as well, and they did have a lot of research done on the house and the property itself, but to, like, what extent, I'm not sure.
So no one really knows.
Well, I do have more information on Bathsheba, the apparition herself. She was presumed to be a Satanist by her neighbors and I guess the community in general. And she was believed to have a role in the death of a neighbor's kid when she lived on the property.
And I think that is back to the movie. I think that in the first movie that is very well acknowledged by the what's the word I'm looking for?
Opening scene?
No, the use of the Jack in the Box and the little wind up toys,
right,
and all the use of child's toys in the movie, and it shows, okay, yeah, there was a kid involved in this, but we don't know how, but we do know that there's a bigger story behind it.
Right. Exactly, like with the game when they do the clap,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing hide and seek with the clap, it makes for a good story. But what happened to the actual family? Like, did they actually play this game? Like, I don't know. I'd be
Yeah.
interested to find out.
Yeah.
And if that really did happen, like, watch out, world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know how the neighbor boy died? Or no?
So I don't know if I put it in here and I didn't bring my notebook with me this time. So yeah, I don't have it like the answer on me. I don't know if there's good service.
I'm Googling.
So while she does that, do you know how the Bathsheba or whatever her name was? Do you know how she died?
I think she hung herself if I'm not wrong.
Like in the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how that played into it because on the, I'm assuming from last time that I seen it, the picture that the movie was presented on, it was the tree and then a woman hanging from it. So I didn't know if that was connected or was it
Well, the house that they actually filmed the movie at, it's not the actual Conjuring house.
okay.
The actual, I don't remember if it was this one or the second movie, but one of them was filmed actually in Georgia. So they're not filmed in the same location.
I don't think the second one was definitely filmed in Georgia. It looked just like...
I meant the third one. It was
okay.
either the first or the third one that was filmed in Georgia. But I do know that I think she owned the house before the family that owned the house for 8 generations did.
Mhm.
But it also might have been after, and I might be wrong. I just can't remember because I didn't write the date down. But, as said, several kids drowned, and, many hung themselves in the attic. And, one was murdered.
Yeah, one was murdered.
So,
That's kind of dark, not gonna lie.
did you... Oop.
Oh, go ahead.
So with the Bathsheba, whatever it is, it hated the mother, the parent family's mother. So Caroline.
Carolyn.
Did Do any of y'all like know if it did anything to the mother, like physically attacked her or really anything? Because it says like it hated her and like it's kind of like after her, but it doesn't say anything about what happened.
Well, if I'm not wrong, and like during the movie there was like the possession scene that actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe Bathsheba was the one, if I'm not wrong, and I might be wrong, to actually like possess him.
Oh, okay. Take a pause.
So did you find the
What little bit I was able to research from the Providence Journal, the real life Bathsheba Sherman actually did not die by suicide.
Okay.
She actually died at the ripe old age of 73 in 1885, and her son, like in the movie, it was said that she sacrificed her son and then hung herself. He actually lived into his 50s.
Oh wow! So that just goes to show that like, not everything is based off of the truth.
There's always a nugget. Like
It
there's
may-
always
yeah.
something
It
of a
may
little nugget of
say-
truth that they build on.
It may
Yeah.
say based off a true story, but it never exactly is.
Maybe like one thing is true.
Yeah.
And everything
Maybe
else just
a
got.
little handful, but not everything.
The house was haunted. That's it.
That's
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's it.
trying to think because I was gonna say something. So it's not just the house that's haunted, it's the ground of the house, because if I'm not wrong, it was built on an Indian burial ground. And there's a path you can take into the woods to find a grave site. And a paranormal investigator actually found it using the spirit box, and it told him like go left, go right, keep going, go left, go right.
Kind of like a pendulum.
It was either they used like a spirit box, like it reads off the stations and like says words and stuff using radio frequencies.
Okay.
Or they used dowsing rods. It was one of the two. I don't remember.
I don't believe in dowsing rods. I feel like that's
I don't know.
total
It's
lies.
too easy
Yeah,
to
it's too
control.
easy to
Easy to
do,
just-
yeah. Like I get that you want it to be easy for like the spirits to move, but if you move it just one slight little move, it's gonna swing it which way. So I mean, you can't really depend on two rods moving.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a path and it leads to a grave site, and there's a pentagram wrote on one of the graves, like chipped into it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like by someone else or like
As
like,
part of the
tomb?
actual.
I don't really know. From what I understand, and I could be wrong, the person who did the spirit box, they weren't filming it, or they might have been. Again, I don't know. But when they got there, there was a gravesite, and they seen one of the graves, and it had a pentagram on it. Pretty much, yeah. And I do know that, along with what we were talking about before, I'm going back, the clapping thing, I don't know if they did that, but I do know that that some entities have the ability to mimic sound. Because I think that's actually often heard in the basement of The Conjuring itself.
Do you happen to think that since there was that pentagram, do you happen to think that it had anything to do with the murder of Alan Bono in 1981?
That I don't know. I think it's a completely different case in and of itself, because it is a case that Ed and Lorraine Warren was a part of somewhat. But about that case, it started off with Arnie Johnson's fiance's brother, like kid brother, her little brother. He had visited some area near a well, and ever since then he started seeing like an older man that would like taunt him and like almost like pick on him and whatever. But
Makes it easier to edit whenever you just.
But he suffered from night terrors and everything, and eventually the night terrors went from just being at night to him seeing this entity in the day. If I'm not wrong, he claimed to have seen a man with big black eyes. I think I wrote it down here. A man with big black eyes, a thin face with animal features, jagged teeth, pointed horns, and hooves.
So yeah, I guess that's...
What you got on this, Miss Clardy?
Okay.
Come on, share it.
So the first thing that popped into my mind.
You got it.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Okay, so in my psychology class, we come at it from, can it be duplicated? Can it be replicated? You use the scientific method. But then in sociology, we start talking about collective behavior and social movements. So in collective behavior, we start talking about urban legends. And one of them is the chupacabra.
Oh.
That sounds like a chupacabra to me.
And this was in, where was this one located?
So this was in
Brookfield, Connecticut.
Brookfield, Connecticut.
And so that's out west, right?
And like,
So
Up north.
North.
We're about as
Far away
Yeah.
from Texas.
No, I'm just saying, like, where the house is,
Mhm.
it's in the west, right?
You mean the
Ish.
physical house?
Yeah.
Like, the actual house where it actually happened.
It is.
Because if it's out west, then that lines up with, like, Native American
Mm-hmm.
ordeals
Mhm.
and, like skinwalkers
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
and,
Right.
and chupacabras and many, like, Indian folklore and all that.
Chupacabra's real.
I believe. I mean,
Some guy
listen,
claims
if
to have
I'm
a
gonna believe anything,
taxidermy
it's
one.
gonna be Indian, like, traditions.
Yeah.
Like Native
But you
American.
cannot leave out the Loch Ness Monster. You cannot leave Nessie.
I'll leave out. I'll
look, we
leave
love
out
Nessie.
I
but
don't know
it's
about
been
Nessie.
years.
I'm not
It's
sure.
been years.
I feel like it might be true. I don't know.
I feel like if I'm gonna go for anything, it's gonna be the skinwalkers, chupacabras, and anything else that Native Americans have said is real. I'm gonna believe it. They've been around longer than we have.
Yeah.
But I also feel like maybe there's still some dinosaurs.
No, there's definitely some.
There's
dinosaurs.
definitely evolved ones.
It was a different town for
The
where
murder.
she died at compared to the actual house.
Okay, so like, where is the house located? Do you know?
Hold on, I'm gonna pull it up on a Google map.
All right.
But moving on. After the boy claimed to have seen what he's seen in his dream, the family called a priest from a nearby church to come bless the house. But sadly, that did not work for them. If anything, it upped the ante. They claimed that he would kick, bite, spit, and swear terrible words. And they also stated that his possession, he experienced strangling attempts by invisible hands, which he tried to pull from around his neck. And the powerful entity would flop him around like a rag doll.
Oh,
Yeah.
that is not pleasant.
I wouldn't think so.
I don't believe in that levitation stuff with them ghosts. I believe they
Like
can.
them picking you up
like-
and dragging you?
Yeah, because that's a lot of energy to be wasted. I mean,
Well, they're
That's a lot of-
powerful entities.
Yeah.
Entities. Like,
until it happens.
Well,
to you.
The actual location is south of the Rhode Island, Massachusetts line, and that's where the Conjuring house is right there at the line.
Okay.
So then the actual place where she died was about halfway through the state.
Okay, so it's nowhere near out west then.
Mm.
So maybe it's another Einfield situation here. Like,
Mystery.
Well, about the lifting people and stuff, like, I just watched Anastasia, so I'm like, like, when the guy dies, and then, like, he's, like, talking to his little pet or whatever,
Yeah.
and he's, like, weak, because he's dead. He's, like, really weak.
mhm.
So how could a spirit lift somebody
Well, I
up?
mean,
But
he
my-
also sold his soul.
Yeah.
Which is like,
Rasputin
yes,
Yes!
Rasputin.
and Bartok?
Yes.
Yes!
That's what she's talking about.
Yes!
Okay, we're good. We're on the same page now.
Mind you,
Okay.
he sold his soul. These people just kind of died, for the most part, at least.
My
Yeah.
thing is, like, once you sell your soul, you can't go back. And I feel like when you do die, and just as from my Christian belief, I mean, when you die, you either go to heaven or hell.
Well, yeah.
And the devil's a power entity, like powerful entity. He was God's right hand man until he decided he wanted to be him.
Yeah.
And now look at him. I mean, he's down there tricking everybody else to come down there with him because he's bored and he's lonely. So I mean, he's got nothing better to do than give his energy to some dude that's died, and next thing you know, he's lifting people off the bed, shaking them, throwing them around. So I mean, who are we to say that it can't happen? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
Yeah. So
But the 11-year-old ended up later being the cause of Arnie Cheyenne Johnson stabbing.
I wouldn't say
Personally?
he was the cause because, well, to continue with more information, after 3 exorcisms, the Warrens and a priest were present for. During them, the Warrens said that he levitated, cursed, and even stopped breathing. But during one of them, he predicted that Arnie would actually murder Bono.
Oh,
Yeah.
he predicted it.
But by around October of 1980, which is when all these events towards David were happening, Arnie got so tired of it happening that he started taunting the demonic presence, and he went as far to say, take me on, leave my little buddy alone. And the presence, he did what he
Vessel?
said. That was, he invited him into a vessel who, was stronger, would actually, probably be easier to take over. And on February 16th, the police said that they believed that a vicious argument broke out between Alex and Bono Arnie and Bono, because around 6:30 Johnson pulled his knife out and stabbed him.
to death.
And the police found him an hour later. He stabbed him multiple times in the chest and the stomach. And so they believe that they got into an argument over Arnie's fiance, Debbie.
About what?
Just an argument.
Some sort of...
That's all the police had to say. But the Warrens believe different because, according to them, despite their warning, Arnie went to the well that was around the location.
The same one as...
And he claimed to have looked into the well and seen a demonic entity in the well, and then blacked out. He doesn't
So,
remember anything till after the murder.
So what do you think about Anderson?
I don't know. I mean,
Mind you, this was the first murder recorded in the 193-year history of Brookfield at the time.
yeah.
The very
That's
first
record
one.
breaking. It's a record breaking.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's insane. I think murder's insane in the first place. I don't know how you could get yourself to do that to somebody else.
And my thing is, from where I grew up, how I grew up,
Yeah.
if you claim that that the devil made you do it, no, there's something wrong with you up in your brain. Something's loose. I mean, you might want to go get that checked out. But then again, this was in a time where mental health and all that wasn't really, it was taken seriously, but not to the extent that we take it to today.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Correct.
if you were mentally ill, there wasn't, okay, yeah, you have, Alzheimer's, okay, yeah, you're going to a home. No, this is, you're going straight to a mentally ill hospital, and you're staying there for the rest of your life. I don't care if
They
you're
didn't,
13, 14.
yeah.
So,
They didn't really think of mentally ill people as normal, though. They thought they were crazy. They didn't think, oh yeah, they're just struggling with something. How we put it in today's world. Back then it was you're insane.
Well, even with serial killers, a majority of them go undiagnosed with a different type of behavior, but good bit have started to have documentation for the antisocial personality disorder while they're in prison and they are tested. And they try to find help. Sometimes it doesn't work.
Right.
The Summer of Sam murders. One of them, he said that he heard the neighbor's dog speak to him and told him to kill people.
Hey, I mean, dogs do some crazy stuff, you know.
But when Arnie was found, he told the police, like the famous line of, "The devil made me do it." They didn't believe him. They stayed with their statement on the report that they got into an argument over Arnie's fiance. And despite his attorney trying to claim not guilty by demonic possession, they ended up having to go with self-defense instead because the judge just wouldn't accept that defense.
Well, I feel like even if you are possessed or whatever, which I don't necessarily believe in very much, I feel like you still have control over your actions. Like, you can't say the devil made you do it. You have control over your own life, and you can choose what you do.
Yeah, there's something in your brain that still clicks, hey,
Yeah.
that's not the greatest.
It's probably not the greatest thing, but you know what? I'm going to do it anyways. That's like,
Yeah, I don't...
And
No, I was just agreeing with that. I'm not sure how I feel about it.
there was a murder a couple years back where this dude, he's probably about 18, he's 19, I think. I don't remember his name, but he killed this homeless man, chopped off his head, put it in a bag, and put it in his closet. And he claimed that he was mentally ill. I was like, yeah, you might just be, because that's not normal.
That's a bit.
well, what's his name?
Bundy?
Nope.
Nope.
Dahmer.
Yeah.
He did that kind of thing too.
I feel like if you claim that you have no control over your body when you commit an act such as murder, when you take a life, I feel like there is always going to be an ulterior motive behind what you did. I don't, like, even if you were thinking about it since you were a little kid or presented those kinds of social effects, I mean, you still can't claim that, yeah, I may or may not be, like, unfit mentally, because, I mean, it's premeditated. You thought about it.
But even then, if you are mentally ill, seek help. That doesn't mean that your actions are right, you know, that killing somebody is right just because you're mentally ill. Like, you have the power to seek help for that.
Yes,
And
especially if... if my 8-year-old brother can stop himself, a 19-year-old can stop himself.
Well,
'Cause-
with demonic possession, it's really like you are no longer you.
Yeah, I don't know if he was demonically possessed. All I know is that something was not right. Had dreams, had these voices. Kill your brother. He never did. He stopped himself. He told us. Got Baker acted, and now he's perfectly fine. Or at least, since he's been back, he seems perfectly fine.
And my thing is, like, whenever you are, like, possessed by a demon, I feel like it doesn't really control your whole body as a whole. And I mean, schizophrenic people, too. Like, they hear these voices in their heads, and they legit hear it. Because there's been times where, like, police officers in their statements, when they've encountered a schizophrenic person, what they believe is real to them, and you can't convince them otherwise. So even if it isn't schizophrenia, I mean, it still could play out like schizophrenia, so you could hear them voices in your head from the ghost, like, in your ear, that nobody else could hear.
For the paranoid schizophrenic, which is what you're describing, they do have the hallucinations that are audible and visual. So it is both that they are seeing. And one of the most well-known cases is for a teacher that was at Princeton, John Nash, and they actually made a movie called A Beautiful Mind back in 2001, 2, right around there. I don't think y'all were even born yet, were you?
No. We were born like 5 or 6 years later.
Yeah.
But John Nash, he actually did not know that he was a paranoid schizophrenic while he was at college, which is about the early 20s when it started to manifest symptoms. So then it wasn't until later on in his career that things started to not add up. And then that's how they come to find out something's wrong.
Yeah.
What do you mean you're talking to this person? Nobody's ever met him.
Yeah.
Well, even people with DID, the dissociative
Identity disorder.
Identity disorder, the people that they are or whatever, they're talking to themselves, but different people in their brain, and they're other people to them.
And like another example of like the ghosts like showing themselves maybe only to you is The Sixth Sense. I love that movie. I grew up watching that movie. But like whenever the little boy, he can only see the older man. I can't remember his name, but he's only seeing him, and then he's also seeing other dead people. So like some people might be mediums and connect to another reality of what's actually happening in the real world.
There's another well-known documented case, the Wyrick family. Have you ever seen A Haunting in Connecticut?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is The Haunting in Connecticut 2, Goes to Georgia. They actually based that off of the Wyrick family, and the little girl saw people around the house, and then she would interact with them, and the parents thought it was an imaginary friend. Well, then the aunt ended up moving closer to them and was like, no, something's a little bit off. And then like she started doing research into the house and actually found the signature of the man that lived there several years before, I think it was. I forget the guy's name though. It wasn't Farney, it was
Barney?
No.
I was
it
thinking
was-
that. That's what I
I can't remember. But anyway, the little girl is shown like a bunch of different pictures, and she goes, "Oh, that's him." And she picked out the owner of the house, and then she picked out different family members of those that had died that she wasn't even alive for. So, I don't know.
Well, Arnie, he, again, his defense changed and said it was self-defense is what it was, but the judge found him guilty and he was charged with first-degree manslaughter on November 24th in 1981. He was supposed to serve 10 to 20 years, however, he only served about 5. But while he was in prison, he married his fiancée.
Okay.
And his fiancée, because of her experiences, she got more into the paranormal, and so, yeah.
All right. Do we want to end it here, or we want to keep going? We got anything else
I
to
think
say?
we need to get on to class.
Yeah. It's 1
We've
of
got
5.
30 minutes left.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Thanks for visiting with us.
Yep. That
That's
wraps it
I'll
up.
see you
That
next
was so
time.
much fun.
and thank you to Miss Clardy for coming out. Big
Sure.
thanks.
No problem. I enjoyed it.
Yes, ma'am.
All right.